Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jason Oxman. I'm the president and CEO of the Information Technology Industry Council, or ITI, the global trade association of the technology industry. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the second in a five-part series entitled Going Digital in Latin America, where ITI has partnered with our friends at the Wilson Center and its Latin America program. We're collaborating on this event series in order to explore how governments can build on the digital transformational gains of the pandemic. The event series explores fintech, workforce development and skills, trade, privacy, and cybersecurity and education. Each session features government officials and industry talking about these important policy issues together. Now, today we focus on the digital workforce, fueled by the acceleration toward digitization of the COVID-19 pandemic. Latin America saw a seismic shift in digitally driven services and online commerce. As countries and communities continue to recover from COVID-19, it's crucial that Latin America continue to leverage these technologies and encourage greater access and adoption. Now, many policymakers throughout the region have already begun to advance new policies in response to digitization that occurred during the pandemic. For example, Brazil's Data Protection Authority has worked quickly to address issues of personal data and small to medium enterprise resources online, while its National Security Agency and telecom regulator have rolled out extensive cybersecurity measures. Brazil, as well as Peru, and Chile, and Colombia are all talking about national AI strategies and beginning to really focus on spectrum availability and other important issues. Now, ITI is proud to partner with the Wilson Center for this event series that will identify and advance the policies that can build on the efforts over the last 18 months and accelerate the digital transformation in the region. We're very focused on improving connectivity and telecommunications infrastructure, on promoting STEM education, and crafting the right policies to incentivize investment in digital technology that spurs entrepreneurship. ITI member companies recognize their crucial role in this digital transformation in the region. And as today's panel will explore, we're focused on helping ensure the transformation success as the region works to fill thousands of unfilled technology jobs that sit vacant due to a lack of STEM education and a lack of opportunities for reskilling. We need to focus on these programs and more. STEM education, for example, it must start in middle school, even elementary school, to bring people into the industry. We're also focused on industry and government partnerships in this effort. For example, Salesforce, which is on the panel today, has made incredible investments in the region in advancing digital skills during COVID and before, and has created a trove of resources for communities, schools, and offices as they adapt to the new normal. Before I turn it over to the panel, I just want to conclude by saying how much we hope to use this conversation today and the entire Going Digital series to dive deeper into opportunities for partnership between government and the private sector. Innovation to flourish will create new jobs, will make regional economies more resilient and productive. We're excited to be part of this conversation. Our thanks again to the Wilson Center for co-hosting this series, Going Digital in Latin America. We hope you join us for all the subsequent events in this series. And now it is my distinct pleasure to turn the virtual podium over to my colleague Benjamin at the Wilson Center, who will introduce today's panelists and moderate the discussion. Benjamin, over to you.
Thank you, Jason. I will indeed, but first I will parry your thanks with a thanks of my own for your and your team's excellent collaboration. It's been wonderful to partner with ITI and with many of your member companies to address these critical issues, to identify what's been a very promising trend, but in events like today's, to look at potential obstacles to the continued expansion of the digitization trend in Latin America and see if we can offer some real solutions. So thank you, and I hope this is the beginning of many collaborations. I want to welcome everyone to this event and wish everyone a good morning. As Jason noted, I'm Benjamin Gadan. I'm the Deputy Director of the Latin American Program here at the Wilson Center. Our event today, Going Digital, Latin America's Digital Workforce, as Jason mentioned, is part of a 5-part series that we launched just yesterday. I hope everyone had a chance To see our event, we looked at the rapid expansion of financial technology, or fintech, in Latin America. We learned lessons from Uruguay's success building an innovative climate for tech, about ways that those ideas can be exported to other countries in the region. Stay tuned for more information about that event and information about further events in the series. The full webcast is available on our website from yesterday's conversation, which featured the CEO of Hackers and Founders, Uruguay's ambassador to the United States, as well as the CEO of dLocal, Uruguay's first technology unicorn. I want you to participate in today's event by sharing your questions. We will look at them later in the conversation, but please start sending them straight away. You can contact us via Twitter through a direct message. You can tag us. Our handle is LATAMPROG, LATAMPROG. You can also email us, and I'll see those emails, lap@wilsoncenter.org. So please, I'll remind you a few times during the event, but don't be shy about sending along your challenges and questions for our guests. Yesterday, as I mentioned, we talked about fintech, financial technology in Latin America, but those are hardly the only digital tools that have at long last proliferated in this region over the past very difficult year. The pandemic, as you know, has worsened poverty and bankrupted countless businesses in the Western Hemisphere. But at the same time, Latin America's technology sector saw head-spinning growth in response to changes in consumer behavior amid prolonged experiments in social distancing. In addition to digital banking, we've seen dramatic shifts in remote education, in telehealth, e-commerce, and cloud computing. This is, of course, very good news for companies in these sectors. In a recent report, the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB, wrote about these boom times for Latin America's technology startups. Evidence of the so-called startup revolution that the IDB identified were more than 1,000 technology startups that have been born in Latin America in recent years that have raised at least $1 million in capital apiece. The group now employs 245,000 people. It's worth $221 billion. This growth offers reasons for optimism for a region that's desperate to reduce its dependence on commodity exports and to restart economic growth post-pandemic. The sluggish economic performance in Latin America, even before the pandemic, had led to grim predictions of another lost decade. And the pandemic's cruel impacts have deepened that sense of pessimism about Latin America's economic future. At the same time, the growth of Latin America's technology sector, which you heard about from Jason, could help the region emerge more quickly from the pandemic's economic doldrums and end up emerging with a far more dynamic economy. For Latin America's technology companies, however, whether they're fintechs or edtechs and everything in between, to play this catalytic role, they'll need more than the rising consumer demand that we've seen over the last year. They'll also need many, and by that I mean thousands and thousands more, skilled digital workers. And at this moment, Latin America's technology companies are struggling to find this digital talent. The digital divide and deep educational disparities are partially to blame, as is a failure to retool education systems rapidly enough, even though technology companies have long been warning us about the future of work and the demands that we would see for a very different set of skills, including software engineers, computer programmers, and others. This is unfortunate given the region's rising unemployment rate. The pandemic led to a loss of an estimated 26 million jobs and pushed the regional unemployment rate to nearly 11% last year. Countries like Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico, very hard hit by COVID-19, with rising unemployment rates, still see major technology companies struggling to fill vacancies. Now, there are no shortcuts to building a digital workforce for Latin America, but there are plenty of good ideas on how to begin churning out digital talent in this region, including so-called upskilling programs for current workers and rethinking digital education for future workers. Governments in the private sector throughout the region are already stepping up. In Brazil last year, the Instituto Alpha Lumen launched Alpha EdTech, an initiative to overcome the workforce deficit in Brazil's digital economy. Last December, the Chilean government partnered with the coding company Coding Dojo to teach digital skills, including for free workshops for low-income students and workers. Across the region, primary and secondary school curricula increasingly emphasize digital literacy. Let's learn more from our experts on the panel today about the opportunities and challenges for Latin America's digital workforce. I am beyond thrilled to introduce this group of experts, including Salesforce's Latin America Government Affairs lead, Alejandro Anderlich, Paula Galvez, a senior advisor to the Peruvian government in its Secretariat of Digital Transformation, and the CEO of Workana, Tomás O'Farrell. I'm going to start with you, Alejandro. And my question is simple. You are, as I mentioned, in a senior position for Latin America, for Salesforce, with lots of important technology companies among your clients. Is it already an obstacle for the growth of these companies to keep up with the increasing demands, this workforce challenge that we've mentioned? Is this an issue for the future? And how big a barrier will it be for Latin America's technology sector?
Thank you, Benjamin. And thank you so much, ITI and Wilson Center, for putting this discussion together today. I'm thrilled to be sharing the panel with Paula and Tomas. And I believe it's really key and symbolic that we are present together as a team discussing this today. Because to advance this type of issues, we certainly need to work together and agree on the basics to act together now. We cannot do anything by ourselves, business and companies. We need to join forces together with the public sector, with academia, with the social, with the civil society, even with the unions. We need to tackle this challenge. And the challenge is exactly as you describe it, Benjamin. So here's the paradox. Latin America is quite left behind for quite a long time, much before the pandemic started. Thousands of Latin Americans who lack of employment or who are not happy with employment that they have, or who would have their job at jeopardy because of the fourth industrial revolution. And even thousands who would probably like to make a change in their job and, actually live the dream they've been thinking of for a while. And they cannot do that. And, people kind of lose their dignity when they don't have, a job that would fulfill their mission in life, right? And on the other hand, you have like these thousands of unfilled jobs in the industry at all levels, entry level, the most sophisticated engineer, you name it. And the paradox is that we keep talking about future of work as something that will happen who knows when, right? I recall about 3 years ago when I was participating in the B20's discussion, the year the G20 was held in Argentina. I was part of this employment and we prepared a lovely white paper on, steps to take to advance the challenges of future of work. And, 3 years after that, we keep talking about future of work, like if it was something that you shouldn't address together right now, right? It is not future of work. It is something that we need to solve urgently and together. And on the other side, we keep complaining that the industry lacks this talent to fulfill the thousands of jobs that are opened without someone who could cover them. And we keep complaining and don't sit together, to see how we tackle the situation. So hopefully this type of public-private dialogue will help us advance real and actual and concrete sustainable and inclusive development for the region. That was a Kickstarter.
Many thanks, Alejandro. That was excellent context. That was the perspective from the private part of the public-private partnerships. And Paula, we will turn to you for the public side. There's a lot of pressure on governments in the region right now to very urgently address this digital talent gap that Alejandro has described as a serious obstacle to the continued expansion of the technology sector in Latin America. This is, one of your main responsibilities, I imagine, in the Secretariat of Digital Transformation. So I'm curious to hear your views on what you're working on in Peru and a bit later, a regional perspective and how other governments in the region are trying to tackle this. I gave a few examples from Brazil and Chile, but Peru is of course not the only government struggling to catch up in terms of public education and upskilling for the existing workforce. Paula, thanks again for joining us, and please let us know what you're working on in Peru.
Benjamin, thank you so much for the question. And first of all, good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I would like to thank the ITI and the Wilson Center for the invitation, but also to send kudos because this webinar series is fundamental. These matters are part of our discussion agenda and all of us should be involved. And thank you for giving this multi-stakeholder perspective. You know, I am currently, as you said, the strategic advisor for the Digital Transformation Secretariat, but I have been advising government entities, major tech companies, and civil society organizations for the past 5 years. And what I found in common from all my experience is fundamental that governments be aware that technology impacts people's lives and the social and economic growth of families. From that end, we're developing each and all of our initiatives at the Digital Transformation Secretariat. For instance, McKinsey estimates that by 2030, between 3 to 14% of the global workforce will need to switch occupational categories, depending on how quickly automation is adopted. However, the technological changes of the fourth industrial revolution were sweeping through workplaces across the continent, eliminating, defining, and creating new classes of jobs, even before coronavirus. Technology growth is always exponential. So if we wait too long, we won't have time to catch up. Therefore, the Peruvian digital strategy defines as a priority objective the boost of digital talent in the citizens to enable the next generation workforce retrain and develop new abilities for a continuously changing and digitally driven workplace. To achieve this, first, it's important to provide the proper training so people can perform at their full potential. Hence, we will co-design a national digital talent strategy using agile methodologies in 3 sprints for the following 7 months, where experts from different stakeholders will participate. We are calling experts from big tech companies, civil society, and academia so that we make sure that all voices are heard, and with a people-centered approach, this strategy will be approved. Also, we have in place a Digital Trust Act that was approved on February 2020. It establishes principles to foster trust, because trust is the base of everything using technologies, in my opinion. So we have a digital classroom platform available for everyone in Peru, not only government officers, and so that they can learn cybersecurity matters and how to develop digital strategy in their organizations, even if they are SMEs, because it is important. Last but not least, the Secretariat of Digital Transformation is organizing bootcamps focused heavily on experiential learning. So government officials, because the first one was directed to government officials, they can learn the actual skills used on the job. No? And just sharing best experiences of digital government, as you asked. We had, for instance, Aura Cifuentes from the Ministry of Technology in Colombia. Also, we had the pleasure to listen to Sim Sikut from Estonia. So we all can learn and, demystify these beliefs that not the cloud because it's not secure, or we should protect that personal data, so we cannot use these artificial intelligence solutions. And the first one was held in May. Thanks to the current remote work situation, we could do it online, and we had more than 4,000 government officials learn. It was the first time we did it, and we had a very, very live chat, people asking questions because the interest is there. They want to learn. So we as governments have the duty to put this knowledge at their disposal. Because unlike traditional education, these accelerated technical training, such as coding bootcamps, make them learn the actual skills needed. I'm going to stop here, and maybe I think we can develop this later.
Thank you so much, Paula. Excellent initiatives, excellent examples of how the government of Peru is trying to address this problem. I think it's important to recognize that, though the trainings are talking about include solutions to very contemporary challenges. A lot of what we talk about with rethinking education in Latin America is a medium term, at minimum, maybe even a long-term endeavor. That's why we've got Tomas here to talk about the business model at Workana. We wanted to make sure that we were recognizing that these problems are urgent. The thousands of unfilled jobs that Jason and Alejandro have referenced need to be filled now if these companies are going to meet public demand and are continuing driving economic recovery. Tomas, talk a little bit about Workana's business model and why it provides potential solutions, again, to problems that governments have recognized, as Paula points out, but maybe can't solve overnight.
Sure, happy to. So Workana is a freelance and remote work marketplace. What we do is we connect companies on one side, be them SMBs, mid-market, or even the bigger enterprises, with the best digital talent on the other. So the type of jobs that companies come to find in Workana are developers, designers, digital marketers, content, customer service, that sort of jobs. We've been doing this in Latin America for 9 years now. So we were pioneers when we started, and people were saying then, hey, freelancing, remote work, this is maybe a niche thing, and can you actually work together with somebody when you don't really see them? And there was always this issue of trust. How do you know that this other person actually knows what they're doing? If I'm hiring a developer, how do I know if they actually can code and they have the tech skills to finish all this? So what a platform like ours does is we bring all this certification and transparency to it. So all the history and reputation of each individual freelancer is listed on the platform. So you can check how many projects they've done before, for what sort of skills, how active they are, what was the rating of other clients, etc. And the other big challenge when hiring somebody that you've never met and that is working maybe on another country is, okay, how do I pay them? And how do I send money to them? And how do I, on the freelancer side, how do I make sure that I do get paid? Because I'm just working on my own. I don't have an accounts receivable department, and I need that money to pay my rent and buy new stuff. So I cannot start chasing companies for payments. Every single remote worker and freelancer, they have horror stories of companies that delay payments or they never paid. So we also manage all the payment side, and we bring this level of trust and transparency to the system. So we started with that. We started 9 years ago with an idea of what work could become sometime in the future. We started growing. We're from Argentina. We did Argentina first, then Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, and then all across Latin America. And then 2 years ago, we also expanded into Asia and are doing the same thing all across emerging markets now. So we had this planning in place of what maybe this future of work that we mentioned in the introduction could become. But then with the pandemic, I think this future became the reality of many companies. So companies then were faced with this sudden prospect of, okay, I need to work remotely. I need to turn everything digitally. I don't have the skill sets. I don't have the framework. I don't even know how to start. So in the past year and a half, we saw many companies come to Workana for the first time to try to look for help. And on the other side, we also found a big boost in workers that were coming to a platform saying, hey, now that I'm working remotely with my current employer, maybe I can also work remotely with another employer and find more rewarding and more profitable work here. So our challenge in the past year and a half has been, okay, how do we deal with all this that we provide? So we provide access to the best digital talent in the region, and we provide them with the best rewarding job opportunities.
Tomas, just before we go back to Alejandro, who are these freelancers that are assisting Latin America's companies? I mean, are they software engineers and coders who are in the region who might one day find their way permanent positions at these companies? Are they in Eastern Europe? How do the wages compare? What makes them sort of preferable to potential local talent, whereas local talent not available? Just give us a bit of the demographic profile of who are, is this cadre of freelancers who are coming to the rescue throughout Latin.
Sure. So one of the things that we decided on early on was that this talent was going to be local. So we mix local companies with local talent. That's the matching that we do. Not local in the same country, but rather in the same region. So client in Colombia hiring a freelancer in Mexico or hiring a freelancer in Chile. The idea behind that is that it's very hard working with somebody that is in 10, 11 time zones away. And it's very hard working with somebody in a different language. So same language, same time zone gives for an easier communication, which gives for a more rewarding work, more both parties are more with the outcome. Regarding who they are and why they are doing this, we have all sorts of people. We have people that are doing this because they're out of a job and they're only looking for freelance work until they can find their next employment. We have people that are working full-time and are doing this as supplemental income, so something they do on weeknights or the weekend. And we have people that are here that choose to be independent and choose to work on their own. And for them, this being independent is more a way of life and the way they want to deal their career, always managing 3 or 4 clients and not depending on one single source of income. So when we looked a bit deeper and said, okay, are they all young? The first bias is that these are all young millennials. But when we start looking at our database and who they are, it's not like that. So we have people from all ages and all walks of life, people that are just starting out, people that have been in the workforce for a long time, but they're not ready to retire and are still looking to be maybe partially employed, but they're full-time. People that have been working full-time, but because of something that happened, either they want to spend more time with their family because they just had kids and they want to dedicate less of a life. So we have all these different people that, depending on the stage of life where they are, being independent and working on their own becomes the best option for them.
I want to remind everyone that you're welcome to join our conversation. Please send us a question or a comment on Twitter. You can send a DM, a direct message, or you can tag us at LATAMPROG, LATAMPROG. You can also send us an email, lap@wilsoncenter.org. Alejandro, I want to talk about the nearshoring possibilities that Latin America has and whether this digital talent might jeopardize some of the more attractive nearshoring jobs that the region might otherwise be eligible for. I mean, we do think about nearshoring for relatively mid or low income manufacturing jobs, but there's also nearshoring possibilities in technology. For that, of course, you need a workforce. What's your sense of whether Latin America is positioned for those kind of nearshoring opportunities, or whether it can't be unless people like Paula, succeed much more quickly in their, upskilling and in their reshaping of public education?
Thank you, Benjamin. So this is the fact. We are living in the middle of the 4th Industrial Revolution and also in the middle of a global pandemic. And COVID-19 has, in fact, accelerated digital transformation of every organization. And I dare to say that nowadays, every single organization may be considered a tech company organization. So, to the lack of resources that we already had, we have like this urgent upscale of needs because every organization is becoming more digital. And, I believe we have to think about this twofold, right? We have to transform while we perform. So, as we certainly need to think of a way to incorporate STEAM from the very early stages of education, that would certainly take quite a long time to get executed, and hopefully we can see that one day becoming a reality. In the meantime, there are lots of open positions that we may fulfill taking appropriate action now. And one of the things that the pandemic has showed is that technology has been a great ally for us to learn in a different way. We work differently, we connect differently, and we also learn differently. So besides the formal education opportunities that we may experience, there are still other opportunities to get skilled, upskilled, or reskilled. For instance, we at Salesforce have an online free platform that is called Trailhead. Trailhead is a fun way to learn Salesforce skills. And anyone who would like to explore the platform can go through a trail, and in just a few months can get up to speed with any of the skills that are required to fulfill some of these many open positions that not only we as Salesforce have, industries also have. And it's a matter of putting those opportunities, making those opportunities visible to the community, and helping them understand that technology may be for mostly anyone. We don't need geniuses to be the ones joining this workforce in the IT community, but there are some positions that do not require these real hard tech skills. And if we bring together the talent, the adequate training, the certifications, and then the ability to be incorporated into the workforce, I believe we would be finding these nearshoring opportunities. I can tell, Benjamin, IDC conducts a study for Salesforce every year about how Salesforce would contribute to developing the workforce in different territories. And the findings from last year show that until 2024, Salesforce and the Salesforce ecosystem would contribute to at least 300,000 jobs in Latin America. And if we take that global, it is over 4 million jobs. And considering that COVID has also showed that someone can virtually serve any region in the world working from anywhere, we can even tackle the opportunity to reach out to this 4-point plus that our ecosystem would offer. And if we multiply our opportunities with those of the other companies that also are lacking these IT resources, the opportunity is tremendous. And we should, as I said, think of the short term as well, not only about incorporating these STEM skills to the entire population from the early stages, but also tackle this opportunity that we have now, to bring awareness that there are these opportunities to lots of people. If they got the right skills, they get certified and then apply for a job in the industry.
Excellent, Alejandro. You talked about the need for STEM skills, and I will turn to you, Paula, to talk more about that. You've mentioned in the context of nearshoring, which I brought up, the need for some more urgent solutions. You mentioned some tools that Salesforce offers. But Paula, I think it's hard to have this conversation without thinking about K through 12 education, thinking about higher education in Latin America, acknowledging the region's relatively poor performance in math and science, in testing of public school children. And I wonder, when you take a step back from some of the more short-term urgent solutions, the upskilling solutions for current workers, how do you think the region and Peru is responding to the need to rethink public education more broadly, basic math and science, but also digital education? So now different from the kind of urgently needed coding boot camps and technical training programs, but now rethinking education more broadly in the region.
Exactly, Benjamin. This case in the Peruvian government. Of course, the Ministry of Education is part of this conversation because there is a need that children, for instance, can develop this analytical knowledge that we all need when we're adults. And for instance, maths, sciences can bring us to even if they will not become engineers or that, because this is very, very important. We find a very, very difficult challenge to the changes of the curricula. I must be honest. However, it's part of the agenda because now in Peru we have institutional authority as it is the Digital Transformation Authority. So we're going with this demand, and actually in the Aprendo en Casa or Learning from Home initiative that we developed in 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic, we could see that there are needs that need to be tackled. So this is part of the conversation. Not yet, we haven't reached to a conclusion yet, but we will do it. Regarding universities, for instance, we have seen that we have one factor that we need to work with inclusion, because there are not many women involved in these careers or courses. That's why we have been involved very, very close to one university in Arequipa, which is a region in the south of Peru, that is developing a free course for women to get close to technology and to see if they're interested in this and develop this kind of learnings, even though they will not follow a career in this path, but just to be close to this. And there are also women that are in these important big tech companies that can speak with them and inspire. We did what's in early July, and we got like a lot of women from all. I mean, this is great because we can do it online, and they are thinking that this is important, that STEM is an opportunity for women as well. But it's actually a matter that it's still going, and we need to work harder on this.
Tomas, the solution that you talked about, it involved providing some of these freelancers to companies that were really rapidly retooling, you mentioned, when they realized that they needed a lot more, smart brains looking at their platforms and making sure that their own workers could work remotely, that they could provide goods and services remotely. All of that had to do with, or much of it had to do with, the social distancing measures. Now, all of that, unfortunately, is still going on in Latin America. And so I don't doubt that there's high demand for your skill set and that of your workforce to come in and help these companies adapt. My question is longer term or medium term. So it's unclear how much of this are permanent shifts in behavior for these companies and of their consumers, or whether what seems to be this giant demand and this huge digital workforce gap might actually not be so severe, or maybe a more gradual ramping up once we resume normal life post-social distancing. So I guess, Tomas, I ask you to forecast, if you wouldn't mind, whether the kind of demand you see right now for Workana freelancers will continue post-pandemic.
Sure, that's a good question, and we get asked that all the time. So, okay, these are stressful and weird times. What happens when it all goes back to normal, and when it all goes to the way we were? And the fact is, there's no going back to the way we were. This is not one of those change for a moment and then return. Once the genie is out of the bottle, it's impossible to put it back in. So what happened with the pandemic is that the world, but most importantly, the talent, realized that they can be productive and happy working remotely. So once this realization sinks in, they won't go back. And for example, before the pandemic, we at Workana, we were already quite remote. Maybe we had about half of the company was remote, half of the company was not remote. Even though we've opened the office, for example, here, nobody comes. And people, we give them the choice, and they all prefer to work from home. Every now and then they do some meeting or some interaction face-to-face, but 95% of the time, if you give it up to them, is spent like that. And people are now adjusting their lifestyles around that. So they're either moving to a bigger house, so they're having a separate room for their office, or they're adjusting their routine, and now they start early in the morning and they take a break in the lunch to pick up the kids from school and spend some time with them. So once that happens, it's impossible for it to go back. And no, it doesn't really matter what companies want to do or try to do. In the end, the talent will be the one that makes these rules. Because if you say, no, I'm against home remote work, and I want every employee to come to my office 9 to 5, and I work at this ugly place downtown that it takes an hour and a half each way, that's perfect. But another company next door will have this policy, and the most talented people will go there, and this will be the cycle. And what will end up happening is that it won't be a perk anymore. It'll be like the minimum thing that you need to have. So some companies will adjust, and we're seeing many of those companies come to Workana to find the talent and also to help them navigate this change. Okay, how do I go from 0 to 1? But some companies will resist this, and they'll say, no, this is a fad, this will go away, and I want to go. And those companies will see that they'll start losing the best talent, and they'll start seeing churn, and people are resigning, and they'll make up all these excuses as to why. Maybe we need training, maybe we need to have happy hours on Friday, or maybe we need all this crap. It won't work unless you realize that the world has changed and you either adapt or you die.
I want other questions coming from you, our audience. Please send us via Twitter. You can DM or tag us at LATAMPROG, LATAMPROG. You can send us an email, lap@wilsoncenter.org. We have a question from Patrice Franco, a professor at Colby College, who asks, and I'll put this to you, Alejandro, though Paula, you may want to weigh in as well. It's a question about policy and potentially legal changes, different labor relations. The question is, what is necessary so that there's more opportunities for internships for those who want to upskill? This is, again, when we talk about upskilling, we're talking about current workers. So now moving the conversation from K to 12 education and even higher ed, but workers who now need opportunities to intern and to learn the skills so that they can be part of the digital economy. Alejandro, let me start with you, but Paula, I'd love your views as well.
Yeah, that is a challenge in certain countries, Benjamin. I believe that legislation on internships may be quite updated in many countries, and as in many other cases, the law should conform to reality, and reality today means that we should think of more creative and flexible ways to contribute to the workforce. And for sure, governments will have to think of these ways and solutions to try to, facilitate operation of this type of resources to the workforce. That is certainly a challenge and to do for many governments throughout the region.
Paula, tell me about the internship economy in Peru, and if you have knowledge elsewhere in the region where labor laws and other traditions and cultural phenomena make it difficult for folks to take internships, part-time work, more flexible opportunities to gain new skills.
Yes, and I concur with Alejandro. This is actually a challenge in Latin America. In Peru, we have two models. For instance, internships for students that are still in undergraduate college, but also for people and would like to do an internship, just not to start a full-time job. But in this case, there is a maximum time. They can only do it for 12 months. So this is actually a limit because sometimes they need to learn more abilities or new knowledge so they can be hired. And this is a limit for sure. In this case, I think we will need to review this policy because we all have already said it, time has changed and law needs to evolve. I mean, also it's always technology going faster than law, but we need to adapt. And we need to think that law, and Jason wisely mentioned it, needs to be open and flexible enough to drive innovation. And we see many bills in the Congress that are always trying to make this more hard and strict, and it should be the contrary. That's why, first of all, in the Peruvian government, we tend to close the breaches, to be very close to Congress and speak with them in order to be more flexible, but also to the private sector, because we need the insights from this private sector and the academia so that we can work in a policy that have all the opinions. In the Latin American industry, the Latin American region, I believe the internship regulations are very similar to this one because in labor market, we're pretty similar. Actually, it's kind of difficult to bring people from other countries to work in Peru or to do internships. They have many, bureaucratic terms to do. So I believe, for instance, in the Pacific Alliance, we should work together, for instance, an internship for STEM or careers in technology that can make this go forward.
Benjamin, if I may add,
please do, Alejandro.
To bring some further optimism and good news, while governments work on resolving the challenges of labor law for internships, there are thousands, I would dare to say, full-time positions available today, which can be, caught up quite right away if people are properly trained in the short term. So let's tackle that low-hanging fruit while we resolve the internship issue.
Thank you, Alejandro. Tomas, we're talking about legal issues now, and you're in the gig economy where governments have acted really quickly enough, both in attitude and regulation, and Congresses themselves. When you look at the gig economy in particular, the ability of companies like Workana to fill the kind of gaps Alejandro was talking about, while companies figure out longer term workforce solutions, or even the gig economy as a permanent model to SOCs in Latin America. What have you found when it comes to Congresses in Latin America? Where are lawmakers progressive on these subjects? Where have they been, too bound to some traditional approaches? Where have unions been helpful and unhelpful? Kind of give us a mapping, if you would, of how Workana has found the policy climate for this type of freelance work in the digital workforce.
Sure. So what we do is we connect knowledge workers. So it's a bit different maybe than the gig economy or what people know of the gig economy. And what you see that has happened in the world is that maybe the Ubers of this world or Instacarts of this world have come in, and people are still discussing, okay, how do we deal with this new way of hiring? You see the US, there's all this lobbying. You see UK also had the same thing with home sharing, Airbnb, and all these companies, they're also there. And still we don't have a clear definition of what the new framework should be. One country does one thing, another country does another country doesn't do anything. In our case, in the knowledge, for the knowledge workers, still I'd say that the discussion is farther behind. We still haven't even started that. What you do see is some countries in Latin America that are trying to do something. And in some cases it works, and in some cases it doesn't work. So the new stuff, how do you set up the rules? And this is my personal preference. So I've born in Argentina, lived in Latin America most of my life, and I think one thing that characterizes Latin America is a lot of good intentions with very, very low impact. So in that case, my suggestion would be for local governments to try to regulate as less as possible in the beginning until you have a clear idea of how this whole thing would be, and try to just stay out of the way. And once you have a better idea, then try to get involved and try to do it. Because the risk that countries face now is if you try to over interact something that isn't yet happening, you may kill this and prevent it from growing. And one thing that defines, I think, the moment that we're in, as you mentioned, this is one big revolution. And this is where Latin American countries can actually use it as their advantage and to leapfrog and become one of the best at doing this. And but in order to do that, I think you just need to let it be, have the market evolve as much as possible and as quickly as possible. And then once this becomes relevant and brings more scale, then of course you need the proper legal framework to do it.
Tomas, can I ask you to be a little bit more specific? Maybe you don't want to play favorites among Congresses in the region or governments, but just examples of policies that you think may be obstacles, others that you think may have adapted to the idea of filling gaps in the digital workforce in a more creative, modern way.
So I like, for example, how Colombia is approaching all this. Colombia has been targeting this from even before the pandemic, and they had this clear idea of what they wanted to do with home and remote working. So I think that's one example of at least the right idea and the right approach. So country that I'd say, let's all try to imitate what they're doing. But again, what's important here is the impact. And even with a well thought out policy, you need it to be bigger, because for example, all the examples that we heard today and everything that Salesforce is doing, that companies like Workana are doing on their reskilling and all that, is just a drop in the ocean. In the end, you need massive, massive scale for this to be meaningful. So even though some countries are on the right track, we need to bear in mind that the goal should be way, way higher, and we should aim for a lot more.
Thanks, Tomas. One more reminder that you can join this conversation. Continue to please send us your questions on Twitter via DM, direct message, or tag us at LATAMPROG, LATAMPROG, or just send us an email, lap@wilsoncenter.org, lap@wilsoncenter.org. Paula, it isn't just technology companies in the region that are struggling to find technologists, that are struggling to find coders and folks who can help in these rapid transitions. It's governments too, right? I mean, governments that found themselves needing to create contact tracing applications, that needed to create registries for people to sign up for vaccination. There's all these areas, social welfare programs that needed to be set up, and you need to be able to reach populations in need. What was the experience in Peru? What have been experiences in Latin America where governments themselves have found, wait a second, it isn't just companies, it's ourselves that are really suffering from a lack of digitally trained workers?
It's not only the IT, from the IT industry. Also, we need lawyers that understand technology, because we are also developing the policies. So it's important to understand this. I think it's a holistic way that we should take this. The Peruvian government, what is doing, and it started this year, we're doing these boot camps so that we can train the people that are actually currently working in the government, but also we want to inspire people not in the government, so that they can learn and be prepared. How we do that? Because we also are doing open codes. But yes, currently we are aware that there is a necessity, and this actually, the Peruvian government is always in near discussions with the countries in the regions, for instance, and Tomas mentioned Colombia is, in my opinion, is leading this way. The MINTIC, the Ministry of ICT, is doing a great job, because they do these challenges, and now they're doing a race for public institutions to develop trainings, to develop new technologies and digital services for their citizens. So that's inspiring. In the region, that's the way we need to work, in a collaborative way. And also, we are calling private companies, as Alejandro mentioned, they have these trainings. So why don't we start using it? In Peru, we have an institution called Servir that trains all the public officers. And we have been discussing, why don't we include these free courses that are available from the beginning in the curricula of this institution? Because, I mean, we do not, we shouldn't try to invent the wheel if it is already available. So this is what we should do. And these public-private partnerships, in my opinion, are a keystone in this process. And also, just to complement what Thomas was mentioning regarding the policies, the business community is very important. I firmly believe that they can contribute in the design of smart public policies. And when they come and explain what Tomas has just mentioned, let us develop our business models, learn, and then create a law. That's the way we should do it, and we should listen. So government officials will be open to receive these opinions, because yes, effective advocacy campaigns can be very, very important in this case. Actually, the Peruvian Congress will be discussing a bill to create labor relations for these delivery platforms, which we trust the Congress will evaluate this better and do not approve this bill, because it will really damage the digital economy in Peru. But that's it. Have good communication and be open to listen to all the stakeholders.
Thanks, Paula. Alejandro, we've heard from Paula that, Colombia, Peru, and others they have secretariats of information. They're showing a commitment to these issues. We've also heard from Tomas that it's a drop in the bucket so far, and that what's needed needs to be scaled up tremendously. My question is, from your perspective at Salesforce and from the companies that you work with, are the governments of Latin America realizing the urgency of this and the need to do it at a much bigger scale in recognition of the kinds of vacancies that you've talked about throughout the region's technology sector?
Benjamin, I believe some are getting up to speed. Some, unfortunately, are not. And let's not blame it on an amendment to the labor law, because we can capture the opportunities of that low-hanging fruit that I mentioned. Let's take, for instance, let me move away for a while from Latin America. The Australian government has created an initiative that is called Skill Finder. They have built like a multi-stakeholder platform where all the online training resources of all major IT companies in the ecosystem have available. They have put that together in a single marketplace, and anyone can take advantage of that online material and content to get upskilled, reskilled, and then see how they can be more successful in their own jobs and in creating new jobs. So we certainly have the opportunity to do something like this here, and certain countries are starting to think and dream big. We mentioned Peru, we mentioned Colombia. I can bring the example of Brazil. We are currently working with the state of Sao Paulo. They, through their Center Paula Souza, which brings together many tech educational institutions, they kind of built this program that is called Minha Chance, My Chance, together with many ICT companies, including ourselves, where we would bring our online training resources for the benefit of their students. And we have just launched a cohort of 1,200 students of all ages and the most diverse bases that you may think of, who following a couple of months training would be certified in our technology. Same happens with other companies and their technologies. And my message here would be to dream big and go up in suggesting that it is not only a matter of bringing the opportunity to gain digital skills, which is necessary, but not enough today. So we need to bring the talent, the skilling, and the job opportunities together to build like this virtuous circle. And I believe that governments, without making any further change to the current labor law, can create the conditions for the ecosystem to work together. That is what we actually need, and we can do that together now.
Thanks, Alejandro. We just have 3 minutes left. I want to share an important question from someone from the Latin American diaspora here. And I'll share with you, Paula, and you, Tomas, and maybe just 1 minute each, you give an answer. It's a question that comes from a graduate student at Harvard University, Ana Solarzano, who asks, Latin American professionals like me have migrated to find relevant education and other opportunities to become digital leaders and experts. What are the ways in which we can reinsert ourselves and create an impact in the region? I'll start with you, Paula. I'll end with you, Tomas. What's the message to talented Latin Americans who've left the region, gained these skills and education, and want to make an impact to solving the problems we've addressed today?
It's amazing and really inspiring that they're interested in doing that. Actually, that's what we all should do. It's a beauty. How to do it? First, I believe it would be great to be part of a community. And I will say that because there are plenty of courses and initiatives, but we don't have it together, as Alejandro was mentioning. So when we're part of a community and we're really change makers, we can drive these changes into the reality. So we can spread the word and say, hey, you have these free courses available, let's do it. Or do it ourselves. For instance, why not teaching what they have learned? Or being as in the Peruvian government we're doing, we have this network of innovating to everyone so they can bring us other opinions and initiatives. That's why we have the Laboratory of Digital Transformation, so we can listen to them. I hope many governments in the region can do that. But Elena, I think was Elena her name, please go and Eda, sorry, knock the door and put yourself there so you can help. I believe it will be very, very appreciated.
Thank you, Tomas. Final words. What's your message to talented Latin Americans who've left the region and want to make a difference?
I'd say the best way to do it is stay where you are and start the next company, the next platform that is going to revolutionize all this. Everything we heard today are serious issues, very hard, but those issues underline a very, very big opportunity. And the way to do it is to create the next platform that will revolutionize everything and really make all these things a lot better and provide all these opportunities to a lot more people. So what we need is more people that are actually doing this and creating the new platforms and the new companies of the future.
Thank you, Tomas. Thank you to Workana for your support for this event. Paula, thank you and your colleagues in the government of Peru. Alejandro, thank you, and Salesforce for all your support. Jason, thank you, and ITI, the Information Technology Industry Council, for your participation and role. This was a wonderful conversation. I think we identified a really important issue, which was, we have a startup boom in Latin America with lots of opportunities to help the region recover from the pandemic. And now we see a major obstacle, the digital talent gap. I think we've talked about a lot of solutions to it that hopefully policymakers in the region will give serious thought to, as Paula is in the government of Peru. As I mentioned earlier, we have an event we held yesterday that you can watch the recording of, related to fintech in Latin America and the future of financial technologies. We have 3 more events coming up, all in partnership with ITI. They will address privacy and cybersecurity, education tech, remote education in the region that has seen the longest period of students learning remotely, if they even have the ability to do so, as well as a conversation on digital trade. Thank you again for being here. I want to end on time here, so thank you again, everyone. Thank you for participating in this conversation, and please join us again for events in our Going Digital in Latin America series. Take care.
Benjamin, thank you, and have a great day, everybody.
Thanks very much. Take care, everyone.